Hi everybody. As you know, for the last month or so we have been fasting from communion together since we can't gather in this space in our sanctuary to commune with one another. And Pastor Tim's going to be coming back here and he will be able to preside now over a virtual communion. So we thought it would be a cool idea for you to bake your own communion bread at home. So this video is going to show you how to bake Lutheran Seminary's communion bread recipe, but know that there's lots of communion bread recipes out there online that you might think looks better. Actually, I'm going to post Pastor Tim's favorite communion bread recipe below, one that he really likes. But anyway, the whole point of this is to get together as a family, bake your own communion bread. Anyway, we miss seeing you, we miss being with you, but until then, be smart and be safe, and God bless you all, and happy baking. All right, so the first thing you want to do is gather all of your ingredients, and I will have a recipe posted with this, but you're going to need some regular white flour, some whole wheat flour. If you don't have whole wheat flour, that's okay, just use all white flour. It'll be all white. Anyway, you will also need some honey. This honey happens to come from one of our First Lutheran families, so thank you, you know who you are. Molasses, salt, which I've got in here, some baking powder, not soda, and olive oil. And I'm dangerously low in here. I hope I have enough. Anyway, that's what you're gonna need. You also need a bowl with a sifter or something. If you don't have this, that's fine. Just use a whisk. And you'll want a baking sheet. I like to put some parchment paper down with it, and a cooling rack. So, careful. Once you have everything ready, it's time to put things together. So here we go. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is sift together, my recipe's up here, sift together 2 cups whole wheat flour and 1 cup of white flour. Sometimes I like to invert that. I'll do 2 cups of white flour, 1 cup of whole wheat flour. You do what you want to do. 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and the same measurement, 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So let's get to it. So now that the dry stuff is done, we can move on to the wet stuff. I did forget an ingredient, by the way. It's water. It's very hot water. That's what the recipe says, very hot. So I boil water, and then pretty much as soon as I can, I put it in. So let's move on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to measure 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons of very hot water. And then I take my tablespoon measure, and what I actually do is I spray it with some oil, because we're going to be measuring some sticky stuff in here, and the oil helps it slide off of the measuring spoon a little bit more easily. We're going to be doing 3 tablespoons each of honey and molasses. Something that needs to be added to the dry ingredients, and that is your olive oil. I don't know how necessary this is, but it's in the recipe. But you're supposed to take 4 teaspoons of olive oil, put it in your dry stuff, and mix it around. So the recipe says the next thing to do is add the wet to the dry, mix it well, but don't knead it. So just make sure you're mixing enough that all the flour is hydrated, there's no dry spots left. Then once it's all come together, you can divide it into 4 equal pieces, and each one of those dough balls you want to flatten into a disc that's about 1/4 inch thick, and put it on your baking sheet. And when it's on the baking sheet, you're going to score it. I'll show you a couple different ways to score it, but we're just going to do all this coming up next. I'll put you above me and speed up the footage a little bit for you to watch and learn. Really dry, so I just added more water as needed until all that flour was hydrated. You should have a slightly sticky dough. Don't knead it, so don't, do all this, but just until it all comes together. So you could probably tell that the dough was getting a little sticky, so I was just you could rub your hand with some oil or water or something to help you pat it out so it doesn't stick everywhere. And the next step would be to take a sharp knife and score the tops of the loaves. And it's kind of fun. I like to do just a cross-shaped because obviously it's very symbolic, but you could also cut it into wedges. I'll do that too. But when you're scoring it, or even throughout any of this process, you can be praying. When you score it, you can say something like, "God bless this bread and all who take part." You can make up your own blessing. But anyway, yeah, just score it as you go here. All right, now that you've got your loaves made and scored, you can now put it into an oven at 350 degrees for about 10 minutes. At 10 minutes, we're going to be taking them out and we're going to brush them with olive oil, or honestly, I just spray with olive oil, and they go back in the oven for another 5 to 8 minutes or so. And they're done when you can pick them up, thump the bottom, and it kind of sounds hollow. We'll try to do that. So, on to baking. I forgot to set my oven, so I get to wait for a little while and clean up. Okay, so my 10-minute timer just beeped, so we're going to be taking this out. Here they are. And like I said, all I do is I just grab some olive oil spray, or you can brush some on and just spray it on. Here's my reminder again. Then you put it back in, maybe rotate the pan around, and set the timer for another 5 to 8 minutes. All right, so the timer just went off for the second round. So we'll go ahead and take these out. And there they are. Now to see if they're done, you want to carefully pick it up and see how it sounds kind of hollow? So we are all done. So now you want to set these up, ooh, that's hot, on a baking rack and let them cool until they are ready. So these are, they do really well in the freezer. So throw them in there. There's 4 of these that it made, so 1 per worship coming up. So yeah, throw them in the freezer, pull them out the night before worship, and you'll have them ready for communion at home. So, thanks for baking with me today. I hope you have a fun time baking at home, coming up with your own communion bread to have at church, at home church. If you, for some reason, don't have honey or molasses, you could use either all honey or all molasses, or if you don't like one for whatever reason. I don't know what to do if you don't have either. But like I said, the internet is full of communion bread recipes that you can use. Just get in the kitchen, start baking, and have a good time. We'll see you later.